I'm not the kind of guy who ends up with a story like this, but here we are. My name, Jack, and I was married to a woman named Lisa for 7 years. It was supposed to be a fairy tale kind of love story. Boy meets girl, they fall in love, get married, buy a house, and plan for a future together. At least that's what I thought it would be. We had a solid relationship for the first few years, filled with laughter, passion, and what I thought was mutual respect. But then things started to change. I first noticed something was off about a year ago. Lisa started coming home later from work, always with some excuse ready to roll off her tongue. There was a last-minute meeting, or I had to help a coworker with a project. At first, I understood that work could get hectic, but over time I began to sense the cracks in our once solid relationship. She became more distant, often glued to her phone, a secretive smile creeping onto her face whenever I asked her about it. That was my first red flag. Things became even more bizarre when she started dressing up more often. She'd spend hours getting ready for work, and when I'd comment on how great she looked, she'd just brush it off. "Oh, I'm just trying to impress the boss," she'd say. Supposedly, there was a new management initiative at her office, just another excuse in a long line of them. I wanted to trust her. I really did. But my gut was telling me that something was rotten in the state of our marriage. The final straw came unexpectedly one rainy Tuesday evening when I got home from work early. I thought I'd surprise Lisa with her favorite dinner. As I walked into the house, the smell of something cooking wafted through the air and I felt a wave of affection. But then I noticed her phone on the kitchen counter buzzing with an incoming message. I didn't mean to snoop, but curiosity got the better of me. I picked it up, my heart racing. The message was from someone named Magic Mike. My heart dropped. What kind of name is that? I hesitated, but I couldn't help myself. I opened the message. "Can't wait to see you tonight. I've got a few tricks up my sleeve." My mind went into overdrive. I felt dizzy and sick. Was she cheating on me with a magician? It felt so absurd, like a plot twist from a bad rom-com. I couldn't believe it. I had to confront her, but part of me wanted to gather more evidence first. I didn't want to be the fool who jumped to conclusions without the full story. I decided to play it cool and act normal, cooking dinner as planned. When Lisa walked in, she looked stunning as always, but I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal brewing inside me. We made small talk, and I could barely focus on what she was saying. Instead, I kept thinking about that stupid message. "Hey babe, what's for dinner?" she asked. "Oh, just your favorite chicken Alfredo," I replied, forcing a smile. We sat down to eat, and I mustered the courage to ask about her day. "So, did you have that meeting today?" I asked casually, trying to gauge her response. "Yeah, it was long and tedious. Nothing exciting happened," she said, avoiding my gaze. Another lie, I could feel it. After dinner, I knew I couldn't wait any longer. I had to confront her about Magic Mike. The moment felt surreal. All those years of trust and love were crashing down around me like a house of cards. As I looked at her, I felt the anger welling up inside me, bubbling like a pressure cooker ready to explode. "Lisa, I found a message on your phone," I said, barely managing to keep my voice steady. Her expression shifted instantly, and for a moment I saw fear flash across her face. "What? You were snooping on my phone? That's so low, Jack." I couldn't believe her reaction. "I wasn't snooping, it was buzzing on the counter. Who the hell is Magic Mike?" The look she gave me was one of pure defiance. "It's no one, just a guy from work, nothing to worry about." "Nothing to worry about? Are you kidding me? That's not how this works, Lisa." And there it was, the first crack in her carefully crafted facade. The excuses, the lies, they all came pouring out, and I stood there, stunned, watching as she spun her web of deceit. But now I was no longer the unsuspecting husband. I was a man betrayed, ready. Set my plan into motion. I felt as if I was in a dream, and that moment in the kitchen would change everything. The betrayal felt like a dagger through my heart, but I wouldn't let her get away with this. I had to formulate a plan, theatrical, poetic justice that would teach her a lesson. I didn't just want to confront her. I wanted her to feel the weight of her lies, like a magician's trick gone wrong. Little did she know, I was about to make her disappear from my life in the most unexpected way. And trust me, I wasn't going to be the one left in the dust. After that explosive confrontation, the reality of what had happened began to settle in. I felt like I was living in a surreal nightmare, and I struggled to process the whirlwind of emotions racing through me. Anger, sadness, betrayal, they all collided in my mind like a chaotic storm. I couldn't believe that the woman I had loved for so long was capable of such deceit. It stung more than I ever thought it could. Lisa didn't seem remorseful at all. In fact, she acted like I was the one in the wrong for confronting her. The next few days were tense and silent. We were two strangers sharing the same space, and the air around us was thick with unspoken words. I watched as she went about her daily routine, seemingly unbothered by the gravity of what had just happened. It made my blood boil. I spent those days plotting my revenge. I had to be clever about it. I didn't want to just yell at her or throw her out. No, I wanted her to feel the consequences of her actions in a way that would stick with her. If she thought she could play with fire and not get burned, she had another thing coming. The thought of her affair with this so-called magician felt like adding insult to injury. What the hell did he have that I did? Magic tricks, illusions. The idea was laughable, but it fueled my resolve. So I started doing a bit of digging. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. I had to find out more about Magic Mike. I contacted a few people in her office, posing as a concerned coworker who wanted to know about team dynamics. It didn't take long for the rumors to surface. Apparently, Magic Mike was not just any magician. He was a part-time performer who often entertained at corporate events, and he had been flirting with Lisa for months. The more I learned, the more enraged I became. The plan began to take shape in my mind. I decided to set up a situation that would expose her and make her realize the weight of her choices. I arranged for a friend of mine, Dave, to help me. He was a local event planner and knew Magic Mike personally. I asked him if he could arrange for Magic Mike to perform at an upcoming charity event we were both involved in. The plan was simple. I wanted to put Lisa in a position where she would have to confront the reality of her actions. The day of the event arrived and I was a bundle of nerves. I had spent the week preparing, ensuring everything was perfect. I wore a nice suit, looking sharp and composed. I wanted to project confidence, even if I felt anything but inside. When Lisa walked into the venue, her jaw dropped at the sight of the elegant setup. She was clearly impressed, and I couldn't help but feel a slight sense of satisfaction. As the evening progressed, I kept an eye on her. She was mingling with friends and colleagues, her laughter echoing through the room. I watched her closely, noting how carefree she seemed, completely unaware of the storm brewing just beneath the surface. I couldn't wait for her to see Magic Mike in action. When he finally took the stage, the energy in the room shifted. He had a charm and charisma that drew everyone in. I watched as he performed card tricks, disappearing acts, and mind-boggling illusions. Lisa was captivated, and I couldn't help but feel a twinge of anger at how easily she was charmed by him. But I reminded myself, this was all part of my plan. As the night wore on, I made sure to steer the conversation toward Magic Mike. I casually mentioned how I had heard he was quite the performer and how he had an impressive following. Lisa perked up, her eyes gleaming with interest. "Oh, he's amazing," she said, almost gushing. He was telling me about some of his latest tricks. I smiled on the outside, but inside I was fuming. "Really? I'm sure he is," I replied, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "He must be quite the magician to have caught your attention like that." She shot me a look, and I could see the gears turning in her head, but before she could respond, Magic Mike returned to the stage for one last performance. "And now," he announced, "I'm going to need a volunteer from the audience. Who's feeling brave tonight?" As if on cue, Lisa's hand shot up. I wanted to scream at her. Didn't she realize what she was getting into? But there was no turning back now. This was part of the show, and I had orchestrated this moment perfectly. Magic Mike called her up, and the crowd erupted into applause. I watched as she took the stage, her face lit up with excitement. For a brief moment, it felt like she had forgotten everything, the lies, the betrayal, but I knew that would change soon. The performance began innocently enough. Magic Mike dazzled the audience with a series of tricks, and Lisa was swept up in the magic. But then, he began to weave in personal elements. "This next trick involves a special someone," he said, looking directly at her. "A woman who has been charming everyone tonight." He pulled out a deck of cards, and I felt my heart race. He continued to engage her in a playful banter, and the crowd laughed, unaware of the storm brewing behind the curtain. but I knew that the climax was coming and I was ready to pull the curtain back on the truth. "Now, Lisa," he said, "I need you to pick a card, any card." She reached out, and as she did, I could see the recognition in her eyes. He was leading her right where I wanted her. As she chose her card, I felt my pulse quicken. "Now, remember your card," he instructed her. "And for my final act, I will make a woman disappear, just like the secrets we keep." The room fell silent, and the weight of the words hit me like a ton of bricks. I glanced at Lisa, and the color drained from her face as she realized the double meaning. This was no ordinary performance. It was a masterful play, and she was about to be the centerpiece of it all. As Magic Mike wrapped up his act, he looked straight at her and said, "You see, Lisa, sometimes we think we can hide our truths, but the truth always finds a way to come out." That was my moment. I stepped forward, allowing the crowd to turn their attention to me. "You're right, Magic Mike. Some people think they can live a double life, playing with hearts like they're just tricks. But sometimes the magician ends up getting trapped in their own illusions." The gasps that erupted from the crowd were palpable. Lisa's face twisted in horror as the weight of the moment settled in. Magic Mike stood there, stunned, and I could see the realization wash over Lisa. The laughter from moments ago faded into an uncomfortable silence as I laid bare what she had hidden. I was ready to expose her, to make sure she understood the consequences of her actions. No more lies, no more secrets. It was time for her to face the truth, and in that moment I felt more powerful than I ever had before. I wasn't just some grieving husband. I was the master of my own story, and I was about to flip the script. The tension in the room was electric, as if the very air had thickened with unspoken truths. Lisa stood frozen, her gaze darting between me and Magic Mike, who looked as bewildered as she did. The crowd had fallen silent, their eyes wide with shock and curiosity. I could feel the weight of their stares, the judgment just beneath the surface, but I didn't care. I was ready to set the record straight. "Lisa, do you want to explain why you've been flirting with this magician?" I asked, my voice steady, cutting through the silence like a knife. "Do you want to tell everyone here about your little secret?" Her mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water, and for a moment she looked genuinely terrified. I watched as the realization washed over her, a mixture of panic and anger. "Jack, this isn't what it looks like," she finally shouted, her tone defensive. "Oh, really? Because it looks like you've been spending more time with him than with your own husband." I shot back, the words spilling out with a bitterness I couldn't hold back. "You've been lying to me for months, Lisa. Did you really think you could keep this a secret forever?" In that moment I could see her mask slipping. The confident facade she had maintained was falling apart, and the real Lisa, the one who felt cornered, was emerging. "It was just harmless fun," she cried, her voice rising. "You're blowing this out of proportion." "Harmless?" I laughed, incredulous. "You think cheating is harmless? Let's not pretend like your actions don't have consequences." The whispers in the crowd grew louder, and I could sense that everyone was leaning in, eager to hear more. I had their full attention, and I wasn't about to let this moment pass without making an impact. I stepped closer to Lisa, my heart pounding but my resolve unshaken. "I trusted you, Lisa. I believed in us. But now I see you for who you really are," I said, my voice low and steady. "This isn't just about you and Magic Mike. It's about the betrayal that cuts deep into our marriage. You've made your choice, and now you have to live with it." She opened her mouth to protest, but before she could get another word out, I continued, "And let's talk about Magic Mike here, shall we? You think you can just waltz into my life and play tricks? You've turned my marriage into some kind of twisted magic act, and I'm not going to stand for it." Magic Mike shifted uncomfortably, his earlier charm gone. "Look, man, I had no idea," he started, but I cut him off. "I'm not directing my anger at you right now. You may not have known, but you've played a part in this, and I'm sure you think it's all just a game." The crowd murmured as I stepped back, letting the weight of my words sink in. I could see Lisa's face reddening with embarrassment and anger. "Jack, this is ridiculous. You've lost your mind," she yelled, but there was a crack in her voice, and I could tell she was struggling to hold on to her composure. "Ridiculous? What's ridiculous is that you thought you could keep this from me forever," I said, my voice rising. "You think you can treat love like a magic trick, Make it disappear when it's convenient for you. This is real life, Lisa. In that moment, I felt an unexpected sense of clarity. It was as if I had pulled back the curtain on my own life and was finally seeing the truth. I had been a fool to ignore the signs, to brush off my instincts. But now, with the entire room watching, I had the chance to reclaim my narrative. This was my story, not hers, and I was done letting her write it. Lisa, realizing the impact of my words, tried to salvage the situation. Jack, please just listen to me. We can work this out. I didn't mean for it to go this far. It was just a fling. A fling? I echoed, incredulous. You think that's an excuse? You betray me and you want to downplay it. That's not how this works. You either take responsibility for your actions or you keep lying, and we both know where that leads. The room was silent, the tension palpable. I looked around and saw the faces of our friends, some wide-eyed in disbelief, others with sympathetic expressions. I felt exposed but also strangely liberated. I was no longer the passive partner in this toxic game. I was standing my ground, ready to break free. I'm not going to be your fool any longer, Lisa. I continued, my voice unwavering. You've made your choice and now you need to face the consequences. You want to play with magic? Fine. But I'm going to make sure you understand the cost of your tricks. The crowd began to murmur, and I could see the wheels turning in their heads. I had no idea how this would all unfold, but I knew I had to keep pushing forward. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about reclaiming my dignity and showing Lisa that her actions had consequences. Lisa's face twisted in anger and desperation. You think you can just humiliate me like this? You're so pathetic. She spat, but I could see the cracks forming in her defiance. The fear and regret were creeping in, and it was only a matter of time before she would have to confront the reality of what she had done. Pathetic, I scoffed. What's pathetic is you thinking you could pull this off without anyone noticing. You're not the only one with tricks up your sleeve, Lisa, and trust me, I've just begun. With that, I stepped back, giving her space. I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins as I turned to the crowd. Thank you all for being witnesses to this moment. I'm done being the victim here. It's time for me to take back control of my life and my happiness. And for Lisa, well, she'll have to figure out how to navigate the mess she's created. The applause that followed felt like a wave of support crashing over me. I had taken a stand, and while the road ahead would be difficult, I felt a newfound sense of empowerment. I was no longer just a husband betrayed. I was a man ready to break free from the illusion Lisa had crafted around our marriage. As I walked away from the stage, Lisa's shouting faded into the background, replaced by the sounds of the crowd's murmurs. I felt lighter, almost liberated. This was just the beginning of my journey toward healing and reclaiming my life. Little did Lisa know, she had just set in motion the greatest reveal of all, her own reality unraveling before her eyes. After that night, everything changed. My confrontation at the charity event felt like a thunderous clap that echoed throughout our lives. The fallout was immediate, and the tension between Lisa and me remained palpable. I could sense her frustration and anger, but I also saw a flicker of fear. I had pulled the rug out from under her, and she was scrambling to find her footing. For the next few weeks, our home felt like a battlefield. Every conversation was laced with hostility, like we were two opposing forces locked in a struggle. Whenever I walked into the room, Lisa would shoot me icy glares, and I could feel the resentment radiating from her. I had turned our marriage into an open war, and there was no way to go back to the way things were. I had resolved to take control of my life, and that meant being firm about my boundaries. I made it clear to Lisa that I wouldn't tolerate any more lies or deceit. I was done with her excuses, and I insisted that we seek counseling to address the issues that had led to her infidelity. Surprisingly, she agreed, but I could see the reluctance in her eyes. It was clear she wasn't ready to truly face the consequences of her actions. Instead, she seemed to be more concerned about saving face and trying to salvage what was left of her reputation. Our first counseling session was tense. Lisa sat across from me, arms crossed, while the therapist, Dr. Bennett, tried to facilitate an open dialogue between us. "So, Lisa, can you tell Jack how you feel about what has happened?" Dr. Bennett asked gently. "I feel attacked," Lisa shot back, her voice defensive. I didn't mean for things to get out of hand. It was a mistake. A mistake. I interjected, unable to keep quiet. This wasn't a slip-up at a party, Lisa. You chose to betray me. You chose to lie. That's not a mistake, that's a pattern. The therapist held up a hand, trying to diffuse the situation. Let's focus on understanding each other's perspectives. Lisa, can you explain why you felt the need to seek attention outside the marriage? Lisa sighed heavily, as if the weight of the world rested on her shoulders. I guess I felt neglected, she admitted, her voice softer now but still defensive. Things had changed between us. I thought it was harmless flirting, just a way to feel alive again. What you saw as harmless led to my heart being shattered, I replied firmly. You say you felt neglected, but you never bothered to talk to me about it. Instead, you chose to run off with a magician. That's not how a marriage works. The session went on, with Lisa attempting to justify her actions while I pushed back, demanding accountability. But despite the heated exchanges, I could see her beginning to crack. The truth was slowly seeping in, and I felt a mix of pride and frustration at the same time. I wanted her to realize the gravity of her decisions, but I also felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, we could find a way to work through this. After the session, things began to shift. Lisa started to show some signs of remorse. She began to open up about her feelings, revealing insecurities I hadn't been aware of. I listened, realizing that while her betrayal was unforgivable, there was still a person I cared about underneath the layers of deceit. But as the days turned into weeks, I couldn't shake the feeling that a part of her still held on to her old habits. She was trying to change, but I wondered if it was truly for herself or just to appease me. I caught her texting late at night, a familiar instinct telling me she was still in contact with Magic Mike. I confronted her about it, and she insisted it was just work-related. I wanted to believe her, but doubt lingered like a shadow in the back of my mind. One evening, after another tense day of counseling and conversations, I decided it was time to dig deeper. I knew I had to find out the truth. I pulled out my laptop and started researching. I looked into Magic Mike's performances, trying to find out where he would be next. My gut told me that he was still a part of her life, and I needed to confront that reality. A few hours later, I discovered a schedule of his upcoming shows. One of them was at a local bar, and it was happening the very next night. I felt a surge of adrenaline and anger. I needed to see for myself if Lisa was still entangled with him. I knew it was risky. Snooping on my wife again felt like a betrayal in itself, but something in me was desperate for closure. The next night I arrived at the bar early, finding a spot where I could easily see the stage without being noticed. The atmosphere was lively, filled with laughter and chatter. I ordered a drink and waited, my heart racing in anticipation. I felt like a detective on the brink of uncovering a vital piece of evidence. When Magic Mike finally took the stage, I watched as he worked the crowd, his charisma lighting up the room. I knew Lisa would be there. She couldn't resist the allure of someone she had been so enchanted by. Sure enough, a few minutes later, I spotted her entering the bar, her laughter ringing out as she joined a group of friends. I felt a twist in my stomach as I observed her, the way she lit up around him, clapping and cheering as he performed his tricks. My heart pounded in my chest as I realized that she had made a choice to be there, to support him, which only deepened the betrayal I felt. As the performance went on, I saw Magic Mike pull Lisa up on stage for yet another trick. My blood boiled as he flirted with her openly, playing the crowd with ease. I could see the way she blushed and giggled, and in that moment I felt a rush of anger wash over me. It was like a switch had flipped, and I knew that I couldn't stand by any longer. When the performance ended and the crowd erupted in applause, I made my move. I stepped through the throngs of people, my heart racing as I approached the stage. I could feel the eyes of the audience on me, but there was no turning back now. As I reached the front, I called out, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Lisa." Her head whipped around, and I caught the look of shock on her face. The crowd grew quiet, sensing the tension that had suddenly escalated. "What are you doing here?" she stammered, her expression shifting from surprise to anger. "I came to see for myself how you spend your time," I said, my voice steady. "I can't believe you thought it was okay to come here after everything that's happened." Magic Mike stood there looking surprised but also smug. "Hey man, I didn't mean any harm," he said, raising his hands in mock surrender, but I wasn't interested in him. My focus was solely on Lisa. "This isn't just about him," I continued, my gaze locked onto her. "It's about you. You said you wanted to change, but here you are, flaunting your relationship with him in front of everyone. Do you even understand the damage you're doing?" Lisa opened her mouth to respond, but I cut her off. "You don't get to play the victim anymore, Lisa. You made your choices, and now it's time to face the music." The crowd was watching intently, and I could feel their curiosity and judgment weighing heavily on the moment. I was ready to lay everything bare. No more secrets, no more lies. I had come to reclaim my narrative, and this time I wouldn't let her spin it back into something she could control. "Do you want to be with him?" I asked pointedly, my voice cutting through the silence. "If you do, then just say it. But if you want to save what's left of our marriage, you need to make a choice. Right here, right now." The tension in the room was palpable as everyone awaited her response. I felt like the ground had shifted beneath us, and in that moment I realized that this was the climax of our tumultuous journey. Either we would confront our truth together, or she would remain lost in her delusions. The choice was hers, and I was ready for whatever came next. The silence in the bar felt deafening, wrapping around us like a thick fog. Every eye was on Lisa, and I could see the gears turning in her mind. I held my breath, the moment stretching out as I waited for her to respond. I was prepared for anything: anger, denial, or even the possibility that she might choose Magic Mike over me, but I had to know where she stood. She finally broke the silence, her voice shaking but loud enough to carry through the crowd. "Jack, this is all a misunderstanding. I didn't mean for it to get this far. Just what?" I interrupted, cutting her off, frustration boiling over. "Did you just want to feel wanted? Did you think flirting would solve our problems? Because it hasn't, Lisa. Look where we are right now. You have a choice to make, and you need to be honest with yourself and everyone here." The audience shifted, their attention hanging on every word. I could see some people whispering to each other, while others leaned closer, eager to hear how this would unfold. I felt like I was on trial, but I was also aware that it was time for Lisa to face the music, to confront the consequences of her decisions head-on. "Look, I messed up," she finally confessed, her tone wavering. "I thought I could keep things separate, that I could have fun without it meaning anything. I didn't think it would hurt anyone. I thought you'd never find out." "Thought I'd never find out," I echoed incredulously. "You think that's an excuse? You've lied to my face, Lisa. How can you still defend this?" The anger in my voice ignited a spark in her, and I saw something shift. It was as if the weight of the situation was crashing down on her, and for the first time, she truly seemed to grasp the magnitude of her actions. "I don't want to lose you," she said, her voice breaking. "I'm sorry. I thought I could handle it, but I can't. I love you, Jack." The admission hung in the air, and for a moment I was taken aback. I wanted to believe her, wanted to cling to the idea that there could still be hope for us. But doubt lingered in my gut, whispering that her words might be just another trick, a last-ditch attempt to salvage her reputation and avoid the consequences of her choices. "Love isn't just words, Lisa," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "Love is respect, trust, and honesty. You've shattered that trust. We can't go back to how things were before. You need to decide if you want to rebuild our marriage or continue this farce with him." "Please, Jack, give me another chance," she pleaded, tears glistening in her eyes. "I'll cut him off, I promise. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right." Behind her, Magic Mike shifted uncomfortably, and I knew this was his moment to back off. "Guys, I didn't mean to come between you," he said, trying to defuse the situation. "I didn't know you were married. I was just you. No, doing my thing." "Your thing," I shot back, my anger flaring again. "Don't act innocent here. You've been playing a part in this mess too, but right now this isn't about you. It's about Lisa and me." The crowd murmured again, and I could see a mix of sympathy and intrigue on their faces. I was putting my heart on the line, but I needed this moment to be real. I stepped closer to Lisa, lowering my voice. "If you want to make this work, you have to show me you're serious. No more lies. No more excuses. I can't be your safety net while you play with fire." She nodded, her expression earnest. "I promise I'll do whatever it takes. Just please don't walk away from me, Jack." As she spoke, I felt a wave of conflicting emotions wash over me, anger, hurt, but also a flicker of hope. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that we could work through this. But I also knew that trust was not rebuilt overnight. It would take time, commitment, and effort from both of us. Okay, I said slowly, choosing my words carefully. I don't know if I can just forgive and forget, but I'm willing to try. But you need to cut all ties with him tonight. No more contact, no more games. If you really want this to work, you need to show me you're serious. Lisa nodded vigorously, her relief evident. I promise I'll text him right now. I'll end it. As she took out her phone, I watched her fingers fly across the screen. The crowd was still watching, but I felt a sense of determination building within me. This was the moment we could either salvage our marriage or let it slip away entirely. I stood there, heart pounding as Lisa typed out her message, hopping against hope that this would lead us down a path toward healing. After a few tense moments, she looked up at me, her eyes brimming with sincerity. "It's done," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "I told him it's over. I'm choosing you, Jack." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the world shift slightly. It was a small step, but it felt significant. "This is just the beginning," I reminded her. "We have a long way to go, and I need you to be all in. Are you ready for that?" "I am," she replied, her voice filled with determination. "I'll do whatever it takes to rebuild what we had. I love you too much to let this go." The crowd began to clap, a sign of support for both of us. It felt surreal to be standing there, publicly confronting the truth of our marriage. I realized that while we had a long road ahead, this moment had marked a turning point, a chance for reconciliation. As the applause faded, I took Lisa's hand, feeling a mixture of hope and uncertainty. We had just skimmed the surface of healing, and I knew that the journey ahead would be anything but easy. But standing there, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I was ready to fight for our marriage, and maybe, just maybe, we could come out stronger on the other side. But deep down, I also knew that trust takes time, and I would have to be vigilant. The scars from her betrayal would linger, a reminder of the cracks that had formed in our love. And while I believed we could work through this, I couldn't shake the feeling that the real test of our relationship was yet to come. The real magic would be in how we rebuilt our bond, piece by piece. In the weeks that followed that pivotal night at the bar, a fragile truce settled over our home. Lisa and I pushed through the uncomfortable silence of unspoken words, navigating the new terrain of our relationship. We were both trying to find our footing, and both of us were painfully aware that the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Rebuilding trust was like trying to construct a bridge from a pile of rubble. Every step was tentative, and the potential for collapse was ever present. Lisa was genuinely trying. She cut off all contact with Magic Mike and stayed committed to her promise of openness and honesty. We continued our counseling sessions with Dr. Bennett, focusing on communication and working through our underlying issues. I watched her struggle with her emotions, but I also saw her determination. It was a side of her I hadn't seen before, and I felt a glimmer of hope that we could salvage what had once seemed lost. But even with these efforts, the specter of betrayal lingered. I found myself replaying moments from the past, questioning every interaction and doubting every word. Is this real? I'd ask myself. Can she really change? It was exhausting, and the emotional roller coaster was draining. One evening, after a particularly tough counseling session, Lisa and I sat down to discuss everything that had happened. The atmosphere was heavy, and I wasn't sure how to start. I glanced over at her, seeing the uncertainty etched on her face, and knew I had to address the elephant in the room. "Lisa," I began, my voice steady but soft, "I want to talk about trusting you again. It's not easy for me. I don't want to keep bringing up the past, but sometimes I feel like I'm walking on eggshells. How do we get past this?" She sighed, her shoulders slumping as she ran a hand through her hair. "I understand, Jack. I hate what I did. I didn't just betray your trust. I betrayed myself too. I've been working on being honest with my feelings, but I know it will take time for you to trust me again." "I want to believe you," I replied, feeling the weight of her words. "But I need to see that you're committed to rebuilding this. I can't just forget what happened." "I know," she said, her eyes filled with sincerity. "And I'm here for the long haul. I'll do whatever it takes to prove it. I love you, and I want to fight for us." As we continued our conversation, I felt a shift within myself. I realized that it was going to take more than just her words to heal. I needed to actively engage in rebuilding our relationship, too. It wasn't enough for me to just sit back and hope things would magically improve. I had to contribute to the healing process as well. Maybe we need to set some ground rules, I suggested. Things we both agree on to help us navigate this new chapter. It could help us both feel safer. Lisa nodded, her expression thoughtful. I like that idea. Let's create a framework for our relationship moving forward. We can build something new together. We spent the next few hours discussing what we both needed from one another: transparency, regular check-ins about our feelings, and a commitment to open communication, even when it was uncomfortable. The act of voicing our needs brought a sense of relief. It felt like we were building a foundation that could withstand the tremors of our past. As the weeks turned into months, we kept attending counseling sessions, and slowly but surely, our bond began to mend. There were still tough moments, but I began to appreciate the small victories. The way Lisa would text me throughout the day just to check in, or how she would make an effort to surprise me with my favorite meal after a long day. I found myself becoming more open with my feelings, too. I shared my doubts and insecurities, and she listened, validating my emotions rather than dismissing them. It was a slow process, but each step we took felt significant. And then one afternoon, while we were sitting on the couch watching a movie together, I felt a wave of warmth wash over me. I looked at Lisa, her eyes bright with laughter as she lost herself in the film. In that moment, I realized that I wasn't just seeing a partner who had betrayed me. I was starting to see the woman I fell in love with, the one who could make me laugh, the one who shared my dreams, and the one who was willing to fight for our relationship. "Hey," I said softly, pulling her attention away from the screen. "Thank you for being patient with me. I know it hasn't been easy." She smiled, her eyes sparkling. "Thank you for giving me another chance, Jack. I promise I'll keep working on being the partner you deserve." We shared a moment of genuine connection, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a flicker of hope that we could truly move forward. The wounds of the past would always be a part of us, but they didn't have to define our future. In the end, I learned that love isn't always perfect. It's messy, complicated, and often requires hard work. But I also discovered the power of resilience, the ability to fight for what matters, to learn from mistakes, and to grow together. As I reflected on our journey, I recognized that sometimes, facing the truth head-on and confronting the pain can lead to greater understanding and connection. And while the road to healing would be ongoing, I was determined to take it with Lisa by my side. We had emerged from the storm stronger than ever, and I was ready to embrace whatever came next. Together, we were creating our own magic, one built on honesty, trust, and a deep commitment to one another. As we took those first steps into our new beginning, I felt a sense of peace settle within me. The past was behind us, and the future was a canvas waiting to be painted with the colors of our renewed love.